Of all the disasters Luna imagined could end her morning shift, leaping into a stranger's lap because of a cockroach was not on the list. Welcome to LessonLit, the place where unforgettable love stories come alive. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you never miss a story. The morning rush at Sunnyside Cafe always felt like a storm Luna had to sail through, balancing trays of coffee cups in one hand and baskets of croissants in the other. The chatter of regulars mixed with the hiss of the espresso machine, and the smell of butter and cinnamon filled the air. She wore her practiced smile, the one that kept customers from guessing how tired she really was, and moved from table to table with the ease of someone who had learned to survive on instinct. Beneath the smile, though, she carried the quiet weight of overdue rent and a dream she hadn't dared to name out loud, a life where she wasn't just serving coffee, but building something of her own. At table 5, Mrs. Henderson was already complaining about the temperature of her tea. Luna apologized warmly, though she had checked the pot herself. It was steaming hot. At table 7, a businessman snapped his fingers as if she were invisible. Still, Luna managed to laugh softly to herself, brushing off the sting. Her grandmother had always said humor was armor, and Luna wielded it daily. It happened just as she balanced a tray stacked with muffins. A sudden ripple of panic rolled through the cafe, a squeal from somewhere near the pastry counter. Luna turned her head and froze. A cockroach, small but with wings folded tight against its body, marched across the tiled floor with a kind of smug confidence, as if it owned the cafe. Luna's throat closed. Her heart raced. She hated them, no, feared them, in a way that made no sense to anyone but her. And then, as if to taunt her, the creature lifted its antennae and began to crawl in her direction. Her body reacted before her mind did. With a strangled cry, Luna leapt backward, tray forgotten, muffins scattering across the floor. The next thing she knew, she was clinging to someone, arms around a stranger's neck, legs nearly tangled in his lap. Gasps and laughter erupted from the tables around them, chairs scraping as people turned to watch the scene unfold. The man she had landed on didn't shout or push her away. Instead, he set down the porcelain cup he'd been holding and looked at her calmly, one eyebrow raised, a hint of amusement tugging at his lips. He was dressed too elegantly for this cafe. Tailored suit, polished shoes, and a wristwatch that looked like it belonged behind glass. But his eyes, dark and steady, held hers without judgment. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," Luna babbled, clinging to him like a lifeboat anyway. "It had wings, I swear it spread its wings and it was huge." The stranger's smile widened, slow and patient. "It's all right. Do you usually leap into customers' laps, or am I today's lucky one?" Her cheeks burned hot. "Only the ones who look like they won't scream louder than me." Her voice shook, half from embarrassment, half from lingering terror. "And am I shaking, or is it you?" "I think it's both of us," he said softly, "but not because of the roach." Something flickered between them then, a pause that seemed to still the cafe's noise. His face was close enough that she caught the faint smell of cedar and coffee, an intoxicating mix that pulled her nerves taut. Around them, chaos continued. The cook yelling from the kitchen window about pests, a customer shrieking that the insect was climbing onto the sugar bowl, but Luna didn't move. Finally, the man eased her gently to her feet, stood, and with deliberate calm picked up a folded newspaper from the next table. He stalked the cockroach like a soldier going to war, while the cafe held its collective breath. One swift movement, smack, and silence fell. He lifted the newspaper with clinical grace. The insect was no more. "There," he said lightly, brushing his hands as though he'd saved the city. "Threat neutralized." His eyes returned to Luna's, glimmering with something she couldn't place. She blinked up at him, trying to find her voice. "You just won over half the women in here," she said, then added awkwardly, "and maybe lost the other half for murdering a bug in public." A ripple of laughter spread through the cafe. Luna felt her knees still trembling. He, however, seemed utterly composed, as if this were the most ordinary of mornings. "I'm really sorry," she said again, fiddling with the frayed edge of her apron. "I don't usually jump into strangers' laps. I promise I'm not completely insane." "That's a shame," he replied with a calm smile, "because this has been the best coffee I've had in years." Her blush deepened. She waited for his name, for some clue to who he was. Instead, he finished his drink, placed a few bills on the table, and walked to the door. No introduction, no explanation, just that same quiet, knowing smile as he disappeared into the city's rhythm. Luna stood frozen, still breathless, muffins at her feet, heart pounding like a drum. Why hadn't he said his name? And why, when she thought of his eyes, did a strange flutter of possibility stir in her chest? The cafe smelled of burnt toast and bitter endings. Morning light poured through the windows, but for Luna it felt like the shadows had gathered only around her. The memory of yesterday's chaos clung to her like smoke. She could still feel the warmth of the stranger's lap, still sun. Either way he'd looked at her, calm, amused, unreadable. But today, none of that mattered. Today, her world was cracking. Mr. Morrison, the manager, summoned her into his cramped office. Boxes stacked to the ceiling, invoices scattered like confetti, and the air thick with impatience. His face was stone, his voice colder than the iced coffee he drank by the gallon. "Luna, you embarrassed this cafe yesterday," he snapped. "3 of our oldest customers called to complain. Do you know what 15 years of loyalty means? And now they're threatening to never come back." "It was just a cockroach," Luna whispered, trying to steady her voice. "I panicked. I'll apologize to them. You jumped on a customer. What if he sues? What if he felt harassed?" Her heart twisted. He hadn't looked harassed at all. He'd smiled. He'd saved her. But she knew words wouldn't matter. Mr. Morrison had already made his decision. "You're fired, effective immediately." The words landed like a gavel. Luna felt her chest hollow out. Fired, over a cockroach. Fired when rent was due in 2 weeks, when the bills were already stacked in her drawer at home. She nodded mutely, gathered her things, and walked past the counter where Letitia, her only friend at work, gave her a helpless, teary-eyed look. Outside, the city moved on without her. Cars roared, people laughed, the world kept spinning as if Luna's life hadn't just been knocked off its axis. She walked aimlessly until her feet carried her to the small apartment she shared with her roommate Sophia. She collapsed on the couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering how it had all unraveled so fast. That night, desperation became her companion. Resume after resume sent into the void of online applications. Restaurants, offices, shops, anywhere, everywhere. She pressed submit until her eyes blurred. Hours bled into dawn, but no relief came. By the second day, her hope had worn thin. Sophia found her hunched over the laptop, dark circles under her eyes. "Luna, you need sleep," she said softly. "What I need is a miracle," Luna muttered. And then, as if the universe had been listening, the phone rang. "Miss Luna Martinez?" The voice was smooth, professional, female. "This is Sarah Mitchell from Stone Industries Human Resources. Your profile has caught our attention." Luna frowned. "Stone Industries? I didn't apply there." "Sometimes resumes circulate through referrals," Sarah said. "We'd like to invite you for an interview tomorrow at 2 p.m. The position offers a starting salary of $4,500 a month, full health coverage, meal allowance, and bonuses." Luna's jaw dropped. $4,500? That was nearly triple what she earned at the cafe. "Would you be interested?" Her mouth moved faster than her brain. Yes, absolutely." When she hung up, her hands trembled. Stone Industries was one of the biggest firms in the city. Their building alone pierced the clouds like a monument to power. She'd read about them in the news. Massive investments, urban projects, a CEO whose name was whispered with awe and envy. Alexander Stone. She thought back, suddenly, to the stranger in the cafe. That calm smile, the way he'd disappeared without giving his name. A ridiculous thought flickered. Could it be him? No, she shook her head. That was fantasy. This was reality. Still, as she stared at the clock ticking past midnight, Luna couldn't shake the sensation that invisible hands were moving pieces of her life into place. But were they guiding her toward salvation? Or into the jaws of Sumti Hades? Hing she wasn't prepared to face. The glass tower of Stone Industries loomed above Luna like a monument built to intimidate. On her first morning, she stood on the sidewalk clutching her bag, staring up at the 30 gleaming floors that seemed to vanish into the clouds. It wasn't just a building, it was another world, far removed from cafes with squeaky doors and chipped mugs. "Don't trip on your first day," she muttered under her breath, trying to steady her nerves. She smoothed the skirt of her second-hand blazer and stepped inside. The lobby glistened like a hotel ballroom, marble floors, gold accents, an endless ceiling. A receptionist in a silk blouse greeted her with a smile too perfect to be real. "Miss Luna Martinez, HR is expecting you. 15th floor." The elevator doors whispered shut, and as Luna's reflection stared back from the mirror-like surface, she whispered to herself, "Act like you belong, even if you don't." The 15th floor buzzed with activity. Sleek desks, glowing computer screens, and employees in crisp suits moved with the efficiency of an army. Sarah Mitchell introduced her to the team, then showed her a spotless desk with a brand new computer that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "This will be your station," Sarah explained. "You'll be assisting the marketing department, filing reports, coordinating presentations, handling communications." Luna nodded, though her brain screamed, "Don't look too impressed." But the truth was, she had never been in an office like this. The whole cafe could have fit on this floor. She sat at her desk, fingers resting on the polished surface, trying to ignore the fear that she'd be discovered as an imposter at any moment. An hour later, while navigating a confusing folder system, she decided to take a break. The hallway stretched before her, lined with frosted glass offices. She rounded a corner and collided with a man carrying a box so large it nearly swallowed him whole. "Whoa!" she gasped, stumbling back as the man steadied the load. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm, almost amused. He set the box down carefully, and only then did Luna see his face, her breath caught. "You," she blurted, pointing without thinking. "The guy with the cockroach." Alexander looked at her, lips twitching into that same slow, unreadable smile. "Hi, Luna." She blinked. "Wait, you work here?" "For a few years now," he replied smoothly, adjusting the box. Luna tilted her head, disbelief shadowing her features. "What exactly do you do? Box carrier? Resident superhero? Professional insect assassin?" He chuckled, lowering his gaze as though hiding something. "Something like that, just a simple employee." Her suspicion melted into laughter. "Well, thank you again for saving me from that mutant creature. I still owe you my life." "My pleasure," he said softly. Their eyes met in the quiet corridor, and Luna felt something stir. Not the embarrassment of yesterday, but a pull, subtle and electric. For a heartbeat, she forgot where she was. Then she remembered herself, tugging at her blazer. "I should get back to work. First day, you know?" "Of course," he said, stepping aside. "See you around." But as she walked away, Alexander stayed rooted, watching her disappear into the hum of the office. In his hands was not an ordinary box of supplies, but a stack of confidential reports bound for his real office on the 30th floor. He smiled faintly at the absurdity of it all. She had no idea who he truly was, and for the first time in years, he wasn't sure he wanted her to. That evening, alone in his penthouse oven, overlooking the city, Alexander made a decision that defied all logic. He called his assistant Marcus. "Find me an empty workstation on the 15th floor, somewhere near marketing." "Sir?" Marcus sounded baffled. "You have an office the size of a ballroom." "I don't care. Call it field research." "Field research involving what exactly?" Alexander glanced at the city lights below, then whispered almost to himself, "Involving Luna." The following week, Alexander wove a double life. In the mornings, he handled urgent matters as CEO, sealing multi-million-dollar deals with foreign investors. But by noon, he slipped down to the 15th floor dressed casually, hauling boxes, pretending to be just another anonymous worker. He watched Luna with a fascination that unsettled him. She was efficient, yes, but more than that, she brought light to the floor. She laughed easily with colleagues, stayed late to help others, and carried herself with a mixture of humility and fire. In a matter of days, she reorganized a filing system that had confused employees for months, and her suggestions during a campaign brainstorming session left even the veterans impressed. Every time she smiled, Alexander felt the strange, forgotten ache of something real. And yet, with every passing day, the lie he had built grew heavier. Because the longer Luna saw him as Alex the box carrier, the harder it would be when she finally discovered Alexander Stone, the man she claimed she could never stand. And deep inside, Alexander knew that day was coming. Miami was alive that summer, golden sunlight spilling across crowded sidewalks and ocean breezes sneaking into the city's glass towers. For Luna, life felt suddenly brighter, as if the rhythm of her heart had been rewound to a sweeter tempo. Lunch breaks at food trucks, spontaneous walks through Bayfront Park, evenings at neighborhood theaters where tickets cost less than a cup of coffee, these became her new routine. And always at her side was Alex, the quiet, humble man with boxes in his arms and laughter in his eyes. He listened to her, not with polite nods, not with the empty smiles she was used to, but with a patience that felt like a gift. She told him about her grandmother who used to scrub rich people's floors while teaching Luna never to measure herself by someone else's wealth. She admitted her fear of becoming invisible, just another worker lost in the shuffle of life. Alex would lean closer then, saying little, but his silence held more weight than 1,000 rehearsed words. Sometimes, though, she noticed things. The way he carried himself. Shoulders straight, movements precise, like someone used to command. The expensive watch that peeked out from under his sleeve, quickly hidden whenever she noticed. The way other employees seemed to glance at him twice, as if they weren't sure who he was. She dismissed it all, After all, he was just Alex, a box carrier with a strange sense of humor, and she liked him exactly that way. By the end of their second month, laughter turned into long looks and long looks into touches. On a warm evening by South Beach, barefoot in the sand, Luna confessed the truth she had tried to bury. "Do you know what scares me the most?" she asked, staring at the horizon. "That one day, I'll fall for someone who hides behind money, someone who's forgotten what real life feels like." Alex touched her cheek, gently turning her face toward him. "And what if the person you fell for wasn't like that at all?" "I'd say," Luna whispered, heart pounding, "that he's the kind of man I've been waiting for." Their kiss tasted of salt water and possibility. That night, Alexander Stone, billionaire CEO, lay awake in his penthouse staring at the ceiling, realizing he'd never been more terrified, because he had just let her fall for a version of him that wasn't entirely real. The truth came crashing sooner than he expected. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Sarah rushed into Luna's corner of the 15th floor. "I need you to take these reports to the CEO immediately. He has a meeting with Japanese investors in 10 minutes. Luna froze, nearly dropping her pen. "The CEO? I've never even seen him." 30th floor. Last office at the end of the hall. Hurry. Her palms sweated as she gathered the heavy folder. This was her chance. Her first glimpse of the elusive Alexander Stone, the man everyone whispered about but few had ever spoken to. She smoothed her blouse, checked her reflection in the elevator doors, and whispered, "Be professional, Luna. No jokes, no sarcasm, no mutant cockroach stories." The 30th floor looked nothing like the others. It was silent, pristine, intimidating. She walked down the long hallway, heart racing. The last door loomed ahead, carved from dark wood, gleaming under the soft lights. She knocked. No answer. Sarah had said to go in. "Excuse me, Mr. Stone, I brought—" The words died in her throat, because at the head of the long conference table, surrounded by executives in dark suits, stood Alex. Not with boxes in his arms, not dressed casually, but in a tailored suit that looked like it cost more than her yearly rent. He was speaking in a firm, commanding tone she had never heard before. On the wall behind him hung a golden plaque, Alexander Stone, Chief Executive Officer. The folder slipped from her hands, papers scattering across the marble like confetti at a funeral. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "This can't be real." Every executive turned to stare. Alexander, went pale. "Luna," he breathed, stepping forward. "You're—" She pointed at the plaque, at him, at the room. "You're him? All this time?" Executives whispered nervously. Someone cleared their throat. The Japanese investors looked bewildered. "Gentlemen," Alexander said sharply, without taking his eyes off Luna, "the meeting is postponed. Leave." "But sir, I said leave," his voice thundered, echoing through the glass walls. It was a tone Luna had never heard, and it made her knees shake, not with admiration, but with betrayal. As the room emptied, she stumbled backward, tears stinging her eyes. "You lied to me, every single day. You let me make a fool of myself, criticizing the CEO to his face." "I never meant to hurt you," Alexander pleaded, stepping toward her. I wanted you to see me as a man, not a billionaire." Her laugh was bitter, cracked. "So you played me? Pretended to be some box carrier so you could, what, entertain yourself, test me?" "No, Luna, it wasn't like that. It was exactly like that." Her chest heaved, fury and heartbreak colliding inside her. "You're not Alex, you never were. You're Alexander Stone, and I don't even know who that is." She turned and ran, past the glass walls, down the silent hallway, into the elevator where her reflection was a blur of smeared makeup and betrayal. Alexander followed, calling her name, but she didn't stop. By the time she burst into the lobby, breathless and trembling, she knew one thing with painful clarity. The man she had fallen in love with didn't exist. And somewhere above her, in his 30-story tower, Alexander realized he had just destroyed the only real thing he had ever found. The Inspiration. Luna discovered the truth. Miami felt colder than she had ever known it. She drove without direction, tears blurring the city lights into streaks of neon, until her car sputtered to a stop outside her apartment. By the time she stumbled upstairs, Sophia found her collapsed on the couch, shaking as though her entire body had betrayed her. "He lied, Sophia," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "All this time, he was him, the CEO, and I—" Her words dissolved into sobs. For days, she barely left the apartment. The world felt heavier, her dreams smaller, her laughter silenced. She replayed every moment: the hot dog on the street corner, the jokes about the arrogant CEO, the kisses by the beach, all of it now tainted, like memories built on quicksand. When she finally dragged herself out to face the world, it got worse. Her reputation, once glowing in the office, was suddenly poisoned. Whispers followed her into every job interview: gold digger, scandal, blackmail. She didn't know it yet, but Victoria Ashford, tall, blonde, ruthless, had orchestrated a smear campaign against her. Contracts evaporated, employers shut their doors, and Luna became toxic in a city where gossip traveled faster than truth. The weight of it all threatened to crush her. Bills stacked higher than her hope. Sophia caught her one evening, sitting in the dark with a tub of ice cream, staring at nothing. "You can't let him or anyone destroy you like this," Sophia said fiercely. "You're Luna Martinez. You're fire. Remember who raised you? A woman who scrubbed floors and came home laughing anyway. Get up. Fight back." The words hit Luna like a spark. That night, staring at the cracked ceiling of their apartment, she made a decision. If no one would hire her, she'd hire herself. If doors kept shutting, she'd build her own. She opened her laptop, ancient, missing 2 keys, slow as a snail, and typed a name into a blank document. Luna Marketing Solutions. It was absurd. She had $47 in her bank account. No office, no employees. But she had a degree in marketing, ideas that never stopped flowing, and a stubborn refusal to stay broken. The next morning, she transformed Sophia's guest room into an office. An old door balanced on 2 chairs became her desk. Posters of marketing strategies filled the walls. A coffee mug doubled as a pen holder. It was nothing, but it was hers. Her first client came almost by accident. Mrs. Carmen, the owner of the tiny bakery down the street, was on the verge of shutting down. Luna pitched a campaign on the spot. Sweet Sundays at Carmen's. Buy 1 pastry, get 1 free. Social media teasers, photos of steaming bread and smiling faces. Within a week, sales skyrocketed. Mrs. Carmen wept in gratitude and paid Luna $300 in cash. That $300 was more than money. It was proof. Word spread like wildfire in the neighborhood. A salon owner called, then a vintage clothing store, a struggling diner. Within a month, Luna had 15 clients and a calendar bursting with deadlines. She worked until dawn, powered by cheap coffee and sheer willpower, her heart stitching itself back together, one project at a time. And for the first time in weeks, she laughed again, real laughter, the kind that came from building something no one could take away from her. But even as she rebuilt, shadows lurked. She didn't know that Alexander had been watching quietly from afar, arranging anonymous referrals to bring her bigger clients, desperate to make up for what he had broken. She didn't know Victoria, bitter and unrepentant, was plotting darker schemes, determined to ruin her completely. Still, when Luna stood in her tiny office surrounded by posters, invoices, and the scent of fresh flowet, from yet another grateful client, she whispered to herself, "They tried to bury me, but they didn't know I was a seed." She believed it, and for the first time in months, hope returned. But what she didn't know was that her greatest test, and the most dangerous blow to everything she had built, was already on its way. The little office of Luna Marketing Solutions smelled of ink, cheap coffee, and ambition. Posters lined the walls, her mismatched team bantered like family, and Luna felt, for the first time in her life, that she was steering her own destiny. But just as her dream was beginning to soar, the nightmare struck. It started one ordinary morning. Luna arrived humming with 2 cups of coffee balanced in her hands, ready to surprise Carla and Miguel. She pressed the computer's power button and waited. Nothing. A black screen blinked, then blue, then dead silence. "Boss," Miguel shouted from the corner, "my laptop's frozen. Wait, no, it's gone. Everything's gone." "Mine too," Carla cried, panic rising in her voice. "The files, every campaign, everything's vanished." Roberto, her 60-year-old assistant, tapped his keyboard with trembling fingers. "All wiped clean. This isn't normal. This is an attack." Luna's heart dropped into her stomach. 6 months of work, client files, strategies, contracts, gone in seconds. Her hands shook as she clutched her coffee. Who would do this to us? We're a small business, not the Pentagon. But deep down, she already knew. A face flashed in her mind. Icy smile, red dress at the gala, poison in every word. Victoria. For the first time in her life, Luna felt powerless. She sank into her chair, gasping for air as the reality hit her. Without those files, they'd lose every client. The dream she had fought so hard to build would collapse overnight. The phone rang. Her trembling hands picked it up. "Miss Martinez, this is Marcus from Stone Industries." His calm, professional voice felt like a rope thrown into quicksand. "We heard about your technical difficulties. Our cybersecurity team is already on its way. No cost to you. Consider it corporate responsibility." Before Luna could argue, a squad of specialists marched in carrying equipment that looked like it belonged in a sci-fi movie. Within hours, every file was restored, every virus traced, every crack sealed. Attack confirmed, the lead technician said grimly. It was a professional job. Someone paid good money to destroy you. We tracked it back to a private account. It belongs to... He hesitated. Victoria Ashford. Luna's hands clenched into fists. Of course, she whispered. That night, Alexander confronted Victoria in the most exclusive restaurant in Miami. He placed a thick folder on the table, evidence spilling across white linen. Bank transfers, emails, recordings of her hiring hackers. Victoria's painted smile faltered. Alexander, darling, it's over. He cut her off, his voice cold as steel. You tried to ruin her life. You spread lies. You hired criminals. You could have destroyed an innocent woman just because your ego couldn't stand being ignored. You disgust me. Her eyes glittered with malice, but for the first time, there was fear beneath it. If you ever come near her again, Alexander said, leaning close, I will bury you in court, in the press, and in society. You will be nothing. Victoria's jaw tightened, but she knew he wasn't bluffing. For the first time, the queen of Miami's elite had lost. The next morning, a letter arrived at Luna's office, handwritten, no corporate stationery, no legal jargon, just simple words in Alexander's unmistakable handwriting. Luna, I know I lied, I know I hurt you, but you deserve to know the truth. Every rumor, every attack, every shadow hanging over you came from Victoria. I stopped her, but that doesn't erase what I did. I pretended to be someone else because I was afraid you'd never see me as a man, only as a billionaire. That fear turned into lies, and those lies cost me you. I don't ask for forgiveness. I only hope you know this. You are the only person who has ever made me feel human, and that will never change. With love, Alex. Luna read it 3 times, tears dripping onto the paper. Her chest ached with the weight of truth and memory. She wanted to hate him. She wanted to throw the letter away, but her heart betrayed her, whispering the same thing over and over. You still love him. Weeks later, her business soared higher. She was nominated as Young Businesswoman of the Year. On the night of the gala, standing in a navy dress that shimmered under the lights, she felt the weight of everything she had survived. The café, the cockroach, the lies, the betrayal, the ruin, the rise. When her name was called, she walked to the stage, trophy in hand, and spoke words she hadn't planned, but felt in her bones. A year ago, I was a waitress who jumped into a stranger's lap because of a cockroach. Tonight, I stand before you as a businesswoman. What I've learned is this: people will betray you, people will try to destroy you, but if you stand tall, if you keep fighting, no one can erase who you are. And sometimes forgiveness is not weakness, but strength. Her eyes found him in the crowd. Alexander, no suit of armor, no disguise, just a man staring at her with tears in his eyes. When she stepped off the stage, he was waiting. Beautiful speech, he said softly. Were you listening? Every word. And did you hear the part about forgiveness? He swallowed. Do I dare hope it included me? Luna studied him for a long moment. The man who had lied, the man who had saved her, the man she loved despite herself. Her lips trembled into a smile. You can start by buying me a hot dog, she whispered, like the first time. His laugh broke, half relief, half disbelief. Done. 1,000 times done. And as his hand closed around hers, the past didn't vanish, but it softened. Because some love stories aren't about perfection. They're about scars, about second chances, about choosing to trust again even when it terrifies you. Luna leaned against him, her trophy glinting in one hand, his warmth steady at her side, and whispered the words she never thought she'd say again. Welcome back, Alex. Back.